All right, what's going on, everybody? So next Tuesday is the midterm elections for the U.S., and it's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, midterm elections that we've ever had in terms of the significance, the importance, and what's to come of it. And for Christians and for the church, it's a big deal because those that you elect, that you put into positions of power, that have the side of godly things, of righteous things, and of course, nobody is perfect, right? But if you elect people that have godly views, then you are going to have godly outcomes to your country, to your laws and your legal areas. So don't ever allow somebody to tell you that you can't vote. Don't ever allow somebody to tell you that you cannot meddle in politics as a Christian, because clearly God was in politics. He was with the Israelites, and all of the early church, all of the Old Testament was about politics. Kings, prophets, many people were clearly wrestling with political issues. And so I also want to say this disclaimer. This video is my opinion, my thought process. I say this as a warning and a disclaimer because those that are of the YouTube police or whoever it is that may audit this video, I'm telling you right now, there's going to be a serious issue with expressing and exercising your freedom of speech if this video gets taken down, even though I'm just telling you my own thoughts and opinions. I'm not here to meddle in anything. I'm giving you my thoughts. And so it's going to be very key to see how this plays out. Now, with that being said, I want to give you some thoughts on what I believe will happen with the midterm elections. The one thing we know for sure, there are people on two sides of the fence. Those that believe in election fraud and many of the things that have happened from 2020 onwards, and even what we're seeing with Brazil. There are many, many people in that camp, and this is a fact. There are other people that just think, hey, there's nothing wrong with it. Any of these issues are baseless conspiracy theories. It was totally valid, and it was the safest election in history. And we know, a lot of us know the narrative that's being portrayed in the media today. And so there's obviously two sides to this camp. And with the midterms coming up, you have a lot of people endorsed by Trump and many others as being this Republican Party that is to do MAGA type or just new America first, the people first agendas. And then you got other people, the continual Democratic, and I'm not speaking for everybody, but the woke liberal agenda and all that stuff. And so there's a very strong polarity in these two areas. And before I talk about what will happen next week, I want to make this one caveat so that it's crystal clear and it's not just an isolated echo chamber. Even Reuters, Politico, and the federal government have come out and warned ahead of the November 8th elections that there is a serious threat to election integrity by, other agents, maybe Russia, Iran, whoever it is. But they specifically talked about cyber threats, and they gave this warning ahead of time, right? And so they're setting the scene, they're setting the narrative, whatever you want to call it. But the realm of possibility of election integrity and it being compromised, that is within the scope of what the government, what mainstream media, they're talking about. And so it cannot be disregarded now, even as they have come out and explicitly told us that that would be the case. It cannot be disregarded as a total baseless conspiracy issue, because there's clearly from the intelligence operation and the government that there's going to be some kind of a threat. And so because they projected this out into the public, then the realm of possibility exists. And so nobody is making up stuff about election integrity issues. And so if you are reviewing this video, or if you're hearing this from other people, just know that the federal government, and as reported by Politico, Reuters, and many other people, have already stated this as a possibility. And so with that being said, what I believe is going to happen next Tuesday is that America has already woken up. They've already woken up to the fact that they do not want this wokest, liberal, leftist, whatever you want to call it, agenda that's in the form of modern day, the Democratic Party, but they want a more conservative, they want a more traditional, they want a more biblical and righteous viewpoint. And that is in the form right now of the Republican Party. And so because of that, I believe that we will see a red wave, and there's going to be massive amounts of people that either switched or they've always been a conservative or a Republican, but they have now chosen to vote in this way. And I believe this is what will happen with the voting itself. But the issue is how that's going to be portrayed. Will people accept it and say, hey, this is what it was? Or is there going to be interference and fraud? And is there going to be some kind of cyber meddling for which they change it and they say, hey, it was a narrow call, but just believe us, this is what the results were. It was a blue wave. No big deal. No red wave. And so what I'm saying very clearly is that people are going to vote in mass in the red, but the reason it will not be shown as red, possibly, is because people meddled in that. And that's the only explanation that we will see in terms of if it was blue, if it was Democrat-led with a lot of the states. But it's going to be red. And so this is my thought. These are my thoughts right now. And so I'm saying this because as a church, you have to prepare with this battle. We've seen this with 2020. You're seeing it play out right now. YouTube is censoring people that are questioning the Brazil elections very early, right? Why do you need to meddle in this kind of propaganda? You don't know what's going on in Brazil. It's only been a day or two. And for you to be able to come out, or for that matter, any other media outlet and say, hey, don't question anything. Just believe us. Everything was fine. You don't need to question the integrity of these elections. Just know that the numbers are true. How do you know that, right? How do you know from your point of view and your perspective, gathering a couple data points and thinking, hey, everything is fine. Nobody is here trying to undermine the elections from a destructive point of view. We were just trying to get to the bottom of it. People are trying to get to the truth behind things. And so I say all of this because there's going to be a big war. There's going to be people that are going to be on both sides of this narrative. But we know, many of us that have discernment, many of us that have been in prayer, many of us that have our eyes open, we know what the real truth is. We know what 2020 was and is. We know what's going to happen with 2022, and all the people that now are awake in this time, in America especially, and what's going on around the world. And so prepare, because the battle is thick. The information war is thick. And a lot of people, they're tired of it. They don't want to be told, you got to believe this. You gotta silence yourself. Don't question these things. People are just trying to have a they're trying to have a righteous, democratic, open, honest, transparent election for America, for the world. And nobody's here trying to cause an insurrection or a riot or these things. People just want free and fair elections. And so this is what I believe will happen on Tuesday. I believe it's going to be a big show, a great sort of pivot point. But a lot of things will come out of this. And it will be very interesting to see what the military does. It will be interesting to see what Biden and many other people do and how they react. But just know this, I've said this before, that don't take anything at face value. Know that there's a war going on. There's a war for your mind. There's a war with propaganda, with controlling the narrative. They're trying to make sure that they get you to think the way that they want you to think. But the only way you can survive in this time is to humble yourself before the Lord and ask the Holy Spirit to lead you. Ask the Lord for discernment. Ask the Lord to lead you to truth and to awakeness. Don't take 2 or 3 resources, your favorite journalists, your favorite news outlets, and say, hey, I'm just gonna go with what they say. I'm just gonna go with what he says or she says. Instead, it's a time right now for you to wake up and get on your knees and ask the Lord for discernment. This is not some joke, guys. This is one of the greatest times, moves of God that we're gonna see in this hour. So love you guys. Talk to you guys very soon.